Think about it. Every hiring decision is a choice that can make or break a team, a culture, and even an entire company. So how do we make the right choice? Hi, I'm Dr. Mickey, and welcome to Inside the Mind of Hiring. Here we'll uncover the psychology and strategy behind effective hiring. Because the right fit isn't just about skill or experience. It's about understanding people, their motivations, their strengths, and the shadows of their shortcomings. Together, we'll tackle the tough questions. How do we look beyond bias? How do we find the qualities that make people not just qualified hires, but the right hires? This is about identifying leaders who drive success, lift morale, and actualize a company's vision. Inside the Mind of Hiring starts now. Okay, welcome everyone. Hi, Dr. Pat. Glad to have you with me.
Hey, Dr. Mickey.
Yo.
Yo.
So our show is Inside the Mind of Hiring. And our episode today is the 2026 demand for purpose-driven leaders. And my question is it real? Because I've heard about this concept before. I really have. But I wonder how it's real or broad-based. But our last episode, we discussed the profile of the 2026 prototypical executive as defined by a substantial executive search firm that's, like any search firm, they're really tuned into the market for executives. And, we didn't get to the last element that I had on the profile, and that was purpose-driven leaders, or those that align business results with a substantive societal purpose, like a broad benefit to their employees, customers, vendors, the communities they serve, and perhaps the environment as well. As a business psychologist, I think this leadership standard is real, but I'm a bit skeptical, or at least I have been a bit skeptical as to whether it is really in higher demand today. It's one of those nice things, nice to have. So I'm thinking it's nice to have, right? So I'm glad we didn't get to this purpose-driven leadership profile aspect the last time, because I think it really deserves a full show focus, today. I really do.
Yeah, I do. And I'm glad you're taking it on now. I'm actually, look, we took on a lot in the last show, and we did a great job that set the stage for what you're about to talk about now, right?
Right, exactly. It does. And, but I think like I said, it deserves special attention. Is this purpose-driven executive standard or expectation valid? Or is it, more the exception rather than the rule? I want to explore that a little bit. And what executives and companies consistently combine, I want to point some of these out, business results and a societal purpose in the way that they operate. In other words, what firms out there are really combining capitalism with a good measure of altruism? And there's some nice examples of companies where leaders align good business results with a consistent and substantive societal purpose. The evidence suggests that the purpose-driven executive is a plausible requirement for 2026, but only for companies that have durable or lasting business advantage, but also reinforce positive employee, customer, and community outcomes, not to mention vendors as well. Now, this is important to say. This does not include companies that use purpose-driven slogans only for marketing purposes. In other words, being a purpose-driven leader or company is only valid when the societal purpose is tied directly to operating decisions, talent practices, and business strategy, not just marketing per se. All right. So what do you think about that, Pat?
I think a couple things. I think a couple things, Mickey. I think you're onto something really important. I think we should explain it to people. Because if you and I were in front of a leadership table, we'd have one conversation. But let's
Right.
imagine us in front of an auditorium of employees and we're having this conversation. And I will guarantee you the number one thing they say is the purpose of the leadership team, the purpose written in the
Mhm.
mission statement, and the real purpose of the shareholders are not aligned. And I think that's what causes the confusion. Had the opportunity to study
It's a
something
good
really
point.
sexy, right? There's this
Yeah.
concept that I got to study, and it's got a really cool name, LMX. That's what it's called. It's leader member exchange. It actually is a theory. And behind that comes what you're about to talk about. Because if we say one thing and we do another, hello, you know what that causes. So, how
Right.
do these things get aligned? Because it doesn't matter how purpose driven you tell your employees when
Right.
they know. Look, I had an employee tell me once, how do you stand what you do? This is actually my last consulting. How do you stand what
Yeah.
you do? And I said, what do you mean? I want to try to help. Well, then the way you can help is to have them change their mission statement. I said, what would you like it changed to? Our purpose is to make money.
Right. Right. Now, I talked to a client, the HR, the HR guy was my gatekeeper with this client. I also had a pretty good relationship with the CEO, but he was my main gatekeeper. The HR guy said, what's your purpose? Shareholder value. That's the end.
That's the
It's
end.
like, and um, it really can, in many ways, should go farther than that.
It
Um,
should.
you know why?
Yes. And no. Yes and no. I mean, this employee went so far as to arrange the statement to say, let's just talk about shareholder value. That as it is developed, it is distributed equally or equitably to employees. And they
Right.
finished the statement. Of course, that did not get any leverage
Right. No,
in this
and
company.
no, it can be very unpopular in a lot of companies, but it's becoming more popular in a lot of companies. This combination of good business results and shareholder value and profit with uh, good societal objectives. It's really important. And you know something? A lot of shareholders feel it's important as
Yeah.
well. Okay, so I'm gonna go over some companies that are really noted as combining both. Okay, first one I found was interesting. There's five. I'm going to give you examples of five companies that combine both. Capitalism and a little bit of altruism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the one is I wanted to figure out how to pronounce his name. Yvon Chouinard. Yvon Chouinard is the billionaire founder and once CEO of Patagonia.
Yeah.
And it's now being run by a fellow named Ryan Gellert. And you know what Patagonia's societal purpose is? They have a key societal purpose, and that's the environment. They make outdoor gear, and the playground of their customers is the great outdoors. The mountains, the valleys, the rivers, the streams, the trails. Um, that's their customers' playground. So it's not a bad idea to have the environment as one of your key purposes. Okay. It makes good business sense to me. Um, and there's some other examples. I don't know what their societal purpose, but here's some really successful businesses that are known to combine both. Mark Benioff is the CEO of Salesforce. Salesforce, as you know or may know, is a customer relations management platform that is very popular with businesses of virtually any size. Now, apparently, Mark and his business are societally purposeful. I don't know how that is, but it might be interesting to look that up. Another one is another company and its leader, Satya Nadella, is the CEO of Microsoft since 2014. And Microsoft apparently combines both uh, capitalism and altruism. I don't know how. I'm going to give you an example of another one. But they're a very successful company, Microsoft. If you ever heard of them, I'm sure you have. They're a technology company that, under Satya's leadership, has added cloud computing and a good bit of artificial intelligence to really have built tremendous market value. Then we have, they're just calling it the Unilever leadership team. And of course, that's Unilever. Unilever is a very successful, big consumer products manufacturer. They make beauty stuff, personal care things. They make home care products and foods. Very successful company. And finally, Jim Senegal, which is and he also describes his Costco leadership. He wants to bring them in as running Costco, which we all know is a great value retailer. Great value retailer. And I'm going to get into some of the specifics on Costco. Their principles are good wages for their employees. They promote from within, very big on that. High value to the customer, which I get when I go shopping there. Vendor respect and fairness. And they volunteer, they promote community volunteerism, and they get it from their employees, and their employees, it's part of their why, and it's part of the company's why. And guess what? They maintain a strong diversity, equity, and inclusion practice in their business. Guess why? One of the reasons is their customers is like, what was it? I was just thinking about this. They're very colorful, their customers. What is it? The Color Coalition? What did they used to call that? The Rainbow Coalition.
The Rainbow Coalition. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And by the way, their employees are Rainbow Coalition as well. You know, just every kind of stripe you see in their stores. So, you know, if they're not practicing diversity, equity, and inclusion, it may not be that great for their business.
But you can see the way it shows up in person too. Let's just talk about that. Now, I've been to some of the Costco's here, but I'm more familiar with the West Coast. And I will tell you, when you go into Costco and you look around, you see the people that are offering the food at the workstation. You get a sense of them. The majority of them are seniors.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, you just see how it manifests. But I will tell you this. Where does the rubber meet the road? Here's where. When somebody like Linda walks up to the information desks and starts to talk to them about employment for a friend of hers, right?
Right.
And you hear the people talk about what it is like to work at Costco. And you hear them talk about the salaries and what's possible and the leadership. And when the last time she did this, they got into a conversation where the member basically said, and we're very proud of our leadership for continuing its diversity program. So, you know, it's one thing for you and I to talk about it, but when you actually talk to the staff and they have that kind of respect for the company, that's very refreshing.
It's not these are not just nice companies. These are not just nice companies. They show a pattern where treating employees and building trust with customers and vendors and benefiting the community, not just taking from it or, you know, doing harm to it, can enable employee retention to a big level. It can enable not only profitable sales, but a lot of brand loyalty and vitality. It also enables innovation. And it's known to enable resilience during tough times. In other words, societal purpose is not just separate from from business performance. It's part of the fabric of their operating model. It's why these firms are often cited as examples of stakeholder-centered leadership. Stakeholder-centered leadership, and I really believe it's important. It's really important for company success, not just large companies. I found it also, I wanted to come up with name companies, but it also really exists pretty broadly in the middle market and middle market companies as well. It's really a positive thing. So if Dr. Pat, if I'm an executive um, seeking a job today, it might be a good idea that you have a sense of purpose, and that sense of purpose or your why aligns with that company's sense of purpose and why as
Yeah.
well. And you speak to that. But you can also, if you're seeking a job, these companies that combine both, um, for lack of a better way of
Yeah.
saying it, are they're employers of choice, I'm sure. And they're really probably great companies to work for if you're seeking a position, as a manager, as an executive, as a director, vice president, or whatever. So, I was thinking about questions they should ask these companies, because if you're in an interview and you don't ask these questions, these companies have a little bit less respect for you, you know? So it's not just putting on the show for yourself and being an attractive applicant or candidate yourself. It's getting to know the person you're sitting across from and what their company is like. So, you can ask, how does the company pay and develop its employees, right? How does the company improve customer outcomes in a lasting way and also vendor partnerships in a lasting way? How does it invest in the surrounding community, not just extract from it? How does it really invest in the surrounding community? And how does it treat the environmental impact, as a real business factor, a real business purpose? You know, so that goes both ways. As an executive prospect or candidate, you're sizing up that company. And by the way, if they're really a purpose-driven company, they're going to respect you for that. They're going to respect your value, and they're going to be proud to talk about it. Believe
Yeah.
me, right?
Yeah.
So, that's really, boy, that went fast. So,
I think those are those questions are important, but also you have to see also how companies behave in crisis. And let me give you an example. Now, I don't know that this is true. This is my observation.
right.
When Costco is known for bringing in like protein powders, all of those good things, right? So what I observed is when a number of these highly visible protein powders were called out for carcinogens, they could not remove them from the shelf. But you know what they did do? They went out and found another company,
Hmm.
almost unknown company
Right.
that produces a protein drink, which I drink today, that doesn't use those carcinogens. And I mean, I don't know that they did that purposefully, but I do think that is something that they would be mindful enough to do. You
Well,
see what I'm saying?
yeah, a big aspect of that company is customer value.
Yep.
So, you would want to market good health in their
Yeah.
product selections and their product mix for their customers, but you won't want to, you want to be real about it. Again, it's not
Yeah.
just an advertising,
No.
slogan.
Yeah. I mean, because most people don't care. I remember walking past the shelf and I was looking at the label and this woman grabbed like 4 cases and I said, that's got a major carcinogen. You know what she said to me? She said, I don't care. It's on sale and my son loves it. And
Right,
so, but that's what they have to balance.
right,
And
right.
and they do that amazingly, I think, right? I mean,
Oh,
it's almost as if Costco goes unnoticed.
yeah. The only thing I don't like about going to Costco, it's too crowded.
Well,
It's
I go to Flemington, which it's not. But part of this too is
it's
looking at
mostly on
this.
the weekends though.
Yeah, I want to talk about Microsoft for a minute
Yeah,
because,
sure.
I have many, many friends that work there from
Really?
day one. And I don't know what their policies are now, but you know what they did, which they opened up stock options to people at every level.
Right.
That's what they
They
did
did.
early on. And
Right. I didn't know that. So that's
they
certainly,
they really did. My friend She said, I'm there 5 years. I said, why is that? She said, because I'll have enough stock that I can retire. Um,
Sure. No,
so
it's a
it is. But you know,
great
there's a company that
practice.
didn't make your list
Okay, and what is
that I
that?
thought would make the list.
Okay, tell me.
Google.
Tell us.
I thought Google would make your list,
Okay,
but
I
they didn't.
well,
That's another show. Um,
well,
that's another show.
yeah,
But
but
you know what you
I, I think it really the demand is growing. The
hmm
demand is growing for purpose-driven leaders. That's the
yeah.
point I wanted to make. I wasn't sure until I, looked into it a little bit.
hmm
And you could talk about Google, but you could also talk about Microsoft. Not Microsoft. We just talked about Microsoft. What I meant was Meta. We could talk about Meta
Yeah.
as maybe being a little iffy um, in term. There's a lot of people that obviously love the platform and use it vigorously, and they get a lot of value out of it. But what's the issue of? They used to have a whole department that was assigned to uncovering societal impact factors,
Yeah.
particularly on customers, not to mention young customers, that could be harmful. And
hmm
they seem to have gotten away from that,
Well,
and I
they're
don't,
stuck with the social. Look, here's where they're stuck.
well,
They're
they're
stuck
stuck
between
with
a
share,
rock and a hard place because
right,
the government has eyes on all of those social media platforms, probably except TikTok, because they don't have
right,
any control over TikTok. But
right,
you have to know the scrutiny that those platforms were under. And to
right.
be able to survive that level of scrutiny without sacrificing everything you built, that was a dance. That should be not, that is not a ballet dance. That was a hip hop dance that they put on to do that. But
Right.
what you're talking about is we have to be aware. And if you're going for an interview with Dr. Mickey, you better be asking Dr. Mickey some of those questions, I would think.
Well, I better be asking you as a
Yeah.
candidate some of those questions because now I would say in the last year or two, it's gotten pretty important to me
Yeah.
to understand any aspect of the company's why as it relates to a positive impact on on all stakeholders in the community and the environment. It's really important for me to find that out and explore that with existing, just not just new clients, with existing clients, because I think it's a real issue today.
You
It's
know, it is. You know what's happening though? People that are doing the interview, Dr. Mickey, they are getting really creative. I will not mention any names, but I have a coach I work with out of New York. And I mean, he is in the top of whatever it is, right? I can only afford 15 minutes with
I'm
him
sure he's
once every
great
two
if he's your
months.
coach. Yeah, yeah.
Right. But he gave me an example once, and I was talking to him about it. I said, you work with these companies. What's the most bizarre question that you ever heard an executive leadership team ask a candidate? He
Right.
said, oh, I got one for you. I said, what? He said, this is not an industry that had anything to do with the job, but the CEO or somebody at the top asked a candidate, how many trees would be enough for you to cut down to make a profit?
Wow.
I don't even know what do you know can you I'm like stuttering right now, but what a interesting question, don't you think?
Yeah, I would probably say none or only the dead ones.
Right, that wouldn't get you the job. And I asked him, why did you ask that
Yeah,
question?
because it may be profit driven.
He said, I need to know what critical thinking is. I need
Right.
to know, who am I dealing with? How far would they go to make money? And would they cross a line that would be
Right.
unacceptable?
Right. Right. No.
And, I
I, I,
followed up with
I
him
think
about
I
6 months later.
understand.
He's got a ton of these questions. He has one about oil, and I don't want to talk about today. But
Right.
what's the point?
Well, the point is if you're showcasing yourself as a job seeker, as an executive job seeker right now, it's important to keep this stuff in mind and and to do your research and find out what these companies are all about and what their whys are beyond profit
Yeah.
and what their whys are beyond shareholder value. You really need to do that.
Yeah.
And it's really important to legitimately and genuinely incorporate what you're about in connection with that. So that's really the
Hmm.
purpose of our, the societal purpose of our discussion
It
today.
is. It
And the
is.
only other thing I'd like you to ask you is, what's Google's thing in terms of their societal purpose? What's their
Well, I know people that
you
work
you
there.
almost punished me and chastised me for not
No,
including them.
I'm not sure they should be included on the list. I think once upon a time that was true.
Really?
Yeah, I do, but I
They,
don't have enough information to make a statement about Google.
okay,
I just know that I have several people that work for my network
right,
that their number one goal was to go to work for Google, and they
right,
did, and
right,
they were a perfect fit for them.
right,
And so I've been fascinated by what they saw in Google and how that
right.
worked.
Okay,
And but I don't want to say too much because Google is a fit for the right people.
right, right.
It is.
Yeah, oh yeah. And I'm not sure I'm not sure what the culture is or what the right people are there. My market, the market that I run around in is primarily the middle market,
Yeah.
mid market.
Yeah.
Growth oriented,
Yeah.
successful mid market companies. And,
Yeah.
I was skeptical about this. I was a little cynical about it because I've heard these marketing slogans before. And, I don't know if they're real. But I'm discovering that, I have one client really, the weather information company that I have, they're really big on the purpose of protecting lives and property. I mean, that's a major purpose for them, and
Yeah.
it resonates with a lot of candidates. It really
Yeah.
does.
The reason I
Hmm.
brought up Google is because my awareness is that it's Google is generally considered a an industry leader in perks.
Okay.
The
So,
perk. You know what
okay,
I mean?
the employee
The
perk.
perks.
Right,
So what do I mean? Work-life balance is one of
right,
them.
right,
Fostering innovation, right?
right,
High salaries, free meals, on-site gyms, flexible work arrangements, right?
right,
That's why I said,
right,
but their goal is to maximize productivity through happiness.
right. Hmm.
Now, where they stand in terms of
I
how
like
well
that.
they do that, well,
Yeah.
come on now. It's either going to be, it's going to be fear or just going to be happy. And then there's a whole
Right,
bunch of range. But what you're talking about today is so seriously important because the market is changing, the people are changing, folks
right.
are losing their job. So leadership better come up with a new narrative.
Yeah, they should and they are. That's what's going on. They should and they are, because the research is showing that truly successful, in-depth successful companies, not fly-by-night companies,
Yep.
companies that are their success is lasting and it's durable, are typically engaged in a real purpose for, again, their people, their customers, their vendors, their stakeholders,
Yeah.
and the environment as well. So
Yeah.
it's
And
real.
and you people, you folks listening, go out there and Google. I think Forbes did a great article in 2023 on the delicate balance with Google, being a Google culture versus the competitive nature of innovation. But they're no different now than all of the other companies popping up that have to deal with the incorporation of AI. Hello, Dr. McGee, and
Right.
almost
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, absolutely. But innovation is AI, and innovation is people, a lot of companies say they're innovative, but they're really stodgy in that regard. A lot of companies, but a company like Google probably says they're innovative and they're really innovative.
Yeah. Well,
So it
look,
can be, so there it is. It can be
I
really
know.
enriching and
So
make
the next
people
show we're going to do is the stodgy leader. What is the best way for people to find out about you, Dr. Mickey? I know we got to run.
DeltaConsultants.com. Look me
Okay,
up.
tune in next time for the stodgy leader. And that has
We'll go for it.
no relationship to age. You can be stodgy at any age.
Yeah.
Dr. Mickey, thank you. Jessica, thank you. Everybody out there, we'll see you next time.
You have been listening to Inside the Mind of Hiring with me, Dr. Mickey Fineberg. Tune in the first and third Tuesday at 11 on Transformation Talk Radio to discover the psychology of making successful hiring decisions. In each episode, hiring managers and HR pros will learn how to leverage assessments and other key screening sources and avoid common pitfalls. Job seekers will gain insight into successfully presenting themselves. For more information on assessing people for mission-critical jobs and on career assessment and coaching, visit deltaconsultants.com and my LinkedIn profile. If you'd like to write me personally, it's Mickey, M-I-C-K-E-Y, at deltaconsultants.com.